last week, when somebody got a hold of, Biden saying, do you have any comment? He decided to say no comment. And then he was asked, there was a follow-up. He was asked about it again, and he had very little to say on it. He seems to have been forced to go pay a visit there. And I realize we don't have a president go out to California every time we have a wildfire out there, but this one's got over 111 people dead, including children. And the president didn't seem to give a damn until what? Until he was forced to politically.
Right. Yeah, he described Maui as he couldn't even remember the name. It was that place that they have on the news. It was disgusting. I mean, yes, I spent 6 years running Maui Recovery, which is about 15 minutes south of Lahaina. And there's some of the most wonderful, wonderful people in that area. And I've been in touch with our executive director, Amory Maori, and one of our staff members was one of the people, Juby Badaya, who was famously filmed being he was one of the people that his car caught on fire and had to run into the ocean and saved a family. There was a family of 5 from California that they had to tread water for several hours holding onto plywood. Yeah, that's Juby and the people that was helping to rescue. It was their 9/11, and for the president to say no comment and then to not even be able to remember the name of it, and then to go today after FEMA gave almost no aid, it's disgusting. Maui is a very special place, and they really honor the tradition of what's called Ohana family. And then talking to my friends who are still there, the one thing that had come really through was they all were there for each other. They sort of they said, forget the government. We can't wait for FEMA. We can't wait for Joe Biden. And they have all kicked into action. AMO has gone to the War Memorial. People were giving out water and supplies and food. And it really showed their true commitment that they have towards one another as a community and not reliant on some, let's face it, a president who leaned on his empathic, lunch bucket Joe. And back in 1988, I was a Joe Biden supporter. I was 2 years out of college, and it was like Dukakis and Biden, and I was a Democrat back then, because what's the old saying? If you're not a Democrat or a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative by your 40s, you have no brain. And back then, I thought he was, the bee's knees, and since then, I'm pretty disgusted at the way he's been as both the president and anything else.
It's really amazing because he does run on, this president who's so, kind, and he understands family and he loves, people. That's like why we'd put him in there, and he'll be this empathetic guy. And then, he acted like it was somebody going up to George Clooney asking him about some sex scandal at the Oscars. No comment. No comment. Yeah. No, you're the president. You're the president of the United States. We're asking you to comment on the suffering and devastation that's happened in one of America's treasures, inside Maui. And he couldn't be bothered to say 2 words. Like, he couldn't think of anything to say off the top of his head. Like, my heart goes out to the people who are suffering. I've got the government, FEMA, looking into it. We'll be there soon. We know it's not soon enough. And then he had another chance when he was asked about the upcoming trip to Hawaii. This is on the 18th. Today, he's expected to go. And this is how that went. SOT 4.
Can you tell us about your Hawaii trip, sir?
No, not now. I'm going to be leaving. I'll be there on Monday.
Why is it important that you go?
Sir, on the family issue. Thank you, Mr. President.
What this tells me is it's perfunctory. He's trying to get out of Dodge. He can't ad lib. He can't fake, even at this point, empathy in his career. He needs it scripted for him. And unless it's in that teleprompter, we're stuck with the real Joe Biden, who is not caring, who doesn't give a damn about what's happening from the looks of it.
And let's face it, the president's role is largely symbolic. And these are one of the symbolic instances that we need to show care and compassion. No one expects him to go there and help rebuild houses or do anything like that. He's no Jimmy Carter, right, with Habitats for Humanity, but at least show a care and compassion, because that's what the people needed to hear, that they were, it was just disgusting, the response. And, his lack of compassion came out last week when some of the wounded vets from the pullout in Afghanistan were criticizing his lack of compassion. Every time he tries to put on his compassion hat, he starts self-referring to some of his own crises. Even the death of Beau Biden, he confabulates how Beau Biden has died. I've got a my closest family members right now is struggling with cancer, and it's a horrible illness, but it wasn't dying in Iraq, which he's used as a way to kind of play up his compassion bona fides, but he lies about it. And so there's no sincerity there. And it's quite honestly, it's the most disgusting thing I've seen in terms of many issues that have bothered me about this president and the corruption that we're now seeing as well.
Well, that's the thing. So I like Charles C.W. Cook, who I love at National Review. He's a libertarian. He's a conservative, but he's got a strong libertarian strain. And he says, I don't want my president to be commander in chief. I want him to do as little as possible. I want him to kind of disappear. And I get that. I actually share in that in many ways. But when you've got the president of the United States sunning himself on the beach and releasing topless photos while 111 people are dead, including children, fleeing from the flames into the ocean with no one there to help, it might be appropriate to at least call attention to it when handed the microphone and asked specifically to say something. Just call attention to it, if nothing else, so that people understand they're suffering. They can do a GoFundMe. They can do whatever it is, send prayers. Right. No comment is not an acceptable answer from the commander-in-chief under those circumstances.
Right. It goes counter to the narrative that had always historically been that the Democratic ethos was for the little guy, the working guy, that they cared, and the Republicans were the big corporate, the overlords who all cared about corporate greed and money. And over the evolution of the last 20 to 30 or 40 years of my adult life, those roles have been reversed. It seems that the Democratic Party right now, as evidenced by the current president, could care less. And it was just hard talking to people that were still there struggling. It's, say what you want about George W. Bush, but when 9/11 happened, he was there with that bullhorn. He was on the ground at 9/11. And that rallying cry of, and pretty soon the world will hear you, that was critical. That was critical for the psychology of our nation, for the emotional well-being of our nation, to just symbolically be there and show support. And we're getting the opposite of that now.
Now, once again, according to the AP, Joe Biden was asked to get more specific in advance of this trip about what his messaging was going to be once he hit the ground in Maui. And he did, I think, what you just accused him of doing. He gave a statement that began, I know how profoundly loss can impact a family and a community, and I know nothing can replace the loss of life. Maybe it was generic, but knowing Biden's history, that sounds more like, trust me, I know, back to me, back to my son, Bo, who allegedly died in Iraq, and I was there to see his flag-draped coffin come home. None of that's true, other than the fact that he did die, Bo Biden, of brain cancer. But once again, he thinks empathy is making it about him. So we're going to look at him and feel sorry for him, as opposed to the people of Maui. I'll tell you who the unsung heroes of COVID are. Of course, the frontline workers, but also those business owners who hung in there and continued to pay their employees. If you stayed open and paid your people, you could be eligible for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. $26,000 per employee. It's not a loan. These are government funds that you do not have to pay back. All types of businesses, including nonprofits and churches, can be eligible. But you need to apply now because Congress may pull these funds. covidtaxrelief.org has helped tens of thousands of businesses just like yours and has secured over $500 million. Unlike others, they charge nothing, zero upfront. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Now let covidtaxrelief.org help you get up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.